Good morning and welcome to the new media show. I'm joined by my co-host, Mr. Rob Greenlee. Good morning, Rob. How are you?
Good, Todd. It's good to be back on the show. I know I was gone last week, and Daniel J. Lewis filled in and did a terrific job. It sounds like talking about a lot of stuff happening last week in the podcasting space. So he was a perfect guy to have on the show
Yeah,
as a Rob replacement.
yes, absolutely, a Rob replacement. We had a great show, and I'm glad Daniel was on. But I'll be honest with you, I'm troubled this morning.
I'm sure you are.
I'm 24 hours into withdrawals because I have been locked out of Facebook.
I know it's so sad. Are you having the shakes, or are you just plain mad?
I'll be honest with you, fucking mad. I am really, I'm angry. So I don't know what triggered it. I woke up yesterday morning. You know, my wife's in Japan for the funeral, and I've been updating the family on everything that's been going on. And that's really been our primary way of communications.
Yeah.
Pictures, information, blah, 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 blah. Because everybody was asking, what's going on, what's going on, what's going on? And I woke up yesterday morning and says, oh, we've selected you for a 1 in a 5 million chance in doing a security validation. Please send us your copy of your ID. And I thought originally it was a scam. I thought, what is this?
Yeah,
Facebook asking for my ID, please.
Yeah.
So I Googled around a little bit, and sure enough. So, I took a picture of my driver's license and, did what they said. Just show the picture, the birth date, and your name. Sent it in to them. About 3 hours later, got an email back, said, hey, screw you. This account does not match. Your birthday's different. I'm like, yeah. And because of identity theft, I've never set my birth date in the exact date on any social media site. I've always just picked a random date.
Yeah.
And yes, here's a heads up. Do you want to lose your Facebook account? Have the wrong birth date in your system.
It's a good lesson. Now, I mean, I totally agree with your practice of using a different birth date, because that can be aligned with like your social security number, and you've got some issues potentially with identity theft. So it makes sense to do that. But I guess if you forget what date you use,
well, it's not even a matter of date, Rob.
Oh, it's not.
No, because it has
it's because it doesn't match.
It doesn't
your ID.
match.
Yeah, that's right. Okay, I get it. Yeah.
So I'm like, what do you do? So, I replied, and then I took a picture of my retired military ID. I took a picture of my passport, took a picture of a couple of credit cards because they recommend that, library card, X'd out. I sent everything back saying, listen, I'm happy to change my birthday, but I've done this because of identity theft issues, and I'm who I am. This account's like 8 years old, however long Facebook's been online. This is me. And no response. So here's a lesson, though. And this is I'm preaching to the choir here, because I've been saying this for years. You can never trust a third-party service ever. If you don't own it, if it's not your .com, if it's not your point of presence, you can't trust these SOBs. You can't. Because, if my account can be taken away, anybody's account can be taken away.
Yeah. Well, unless you strictly follow all of their rules, if you try and protect yourself and do like you did, that's the danger, right? And it's a privacy issue.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Those guys want to get accurate information from everybody.
And my mom told me the date she thinks I put in the system. I think it's November 12th is the date that I put in their system, and that's nowhere near my birthday, because she went back and looking for, she follows my profile, and she was looking for when people were wishing me happy birthday, because you know how it pops up. And I always, but I thought, be honest with you though, I thought I had changed it at some point, but who looks at that stuff? So, I'm high and dry. And what may end up happening, I may have to ultimately, I may lose. Not only do I lose my personal profile with thousands of posts, thousands of friends that I took how many years to build up. And I also, whatever pictures I put in there, which, I have masters of those, so I didn't lose
Yeah.
pictures per se. I lost my business accounts because Geek News Central's landing page is on my profile. So I've lost my pages that I had set up. So it's not just my personal, it's devastating.
Yeah. Well, you told me that you had reached out to Robert Scoble to maybe get his thoughts, and he's a great contact because I know he knows lots of folks over at Facebook.
So this may run its course before it's all done.
Yeah, no, I'm pretty confident that you'll figure out a way to get your account back. It's just a matter of how long is it going to take?
Right.
How many hoops you're going to have to jump, and
and I'm afraid to make another account in the meantime. But I'm telling all of my teammates at Raw Voice because we have huge social interactions going on with customers and everything else on there. And I said, you guys got to cover. I'm out. Tapped out.
Yeah, you're off the field, right? You're
I'm
on
off
the injured reserve list.
Right. I'm no longer a player. And and yesterday I was kind of in distress. I thought this would take a couple hours, to work out. And I was calm, breathing nicely. My last night, and I'm like, I come over to my computer, and I'm like, oh, well, I guess I can check Twitter. And meanwhile, I'm getting texts from family members saying, "What the is they wanting to know what's going on in Okinawa."
Well, yeah, because it's not like your Facebook page is down. People can get to it.
No, it's gone. Right? It's gone.
Oh, it's completely offline?
It's gone. It's off.
You know what? I was looking for your phone number on my phone last night, and because my phone synchronizes with Facebook. And you're right, I couldn't find you in my contacts.
It's gone.
Oh yeah, that's right.
Wow. You sync your phone with Facebook? Oh my God, Rob.
Well, no, it's the Facebook app synchronizes all my contacts that I have in Facebook with my contact list in my phone. So,
whoa.
Yeah. So I have like a hub page. I use the Windows Phone platform, and so each contact that I have has a page in my People app.
Right.
And it combines all of the accounts from like Skype and Twitter and Facebook and Instagram all into one screen. I just tap a button and I can contact anybody.
Well, I'm no longer your because
I know exactly
because you rely on that. See, now you're screwed, and I'm even more screwed.
Yeah, that's right. So I'm gonna have to create a whole separate account in here that's separate from Facebook just for you. Which is fine. I don't mind doing that.
It's insane.
I know.
I mean, it's so I get a taste of my own medicine here. I've been preaching to podcasters for 10 years, but this is the truth. This is the truth. If you are, you can be the company can go out of business. They can lock you out because they say, I don't like you. Or number 3, first of all, my account wasn't doing anything it wasn't supposed to.
Yeah.
But yet I got rolled up into some security check because what I'm reading
somebody flagged you.
Someone flagged me. Some asshole was probably jealous.
Yeah.
And flagged me. And that's what happens
what their
now.
Motivation was, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Could be business motivation or whatever, And and then I have a couple of suspicions. It's not podcast related. It's not podcast business related, but it's my podcast related.
Oh.
Yeah, I have a suspicion because I had recently got an email from someone. See, well, I'll just leave it at this, but it could have been someone just being malicious and said he's a mark, and I don't even know how you do that in Facebook. Mark this account as a spammer or whatever. So, or he isn't who he says he is, or whatever. But it just goes to prove don't don't mess around on Facebook and have your right birthday in there, because if you get locked out, I would be back online if I'd had the right birthday.
Yeah.
So, sue me for trying to protect my identity. That's
Yeah.
what's, if they would opt it so people couldn't see your birthday, they say, oh, you're your friends, they can see your birthday. Okay, we all know that in our Facebook profiles, we have lots of people that are friends that are beyond direct, like, hey, bud, high five. We've all
Yeah,
thought,
I can't turn off these birthday notifications on my phone and all my computers.
right.
I mean, I get like, I don't know, 15, 20 birthday notifications every day, and it's like they're just constantly popping up, and I can't turn it off.
So it's just, it's like,
Yeah.
it's one, and it's, they say, oh man, Todd's birthday is da da da. Let
Yeah.
me write that down now. I know, from his podcast that he grew up here, and that people can make assumptions about your identity, and if they want to steal it,
Yeah.
if you're online like I am and you are, as much as we are,
Yeah.
so how do you protect yourself from that? I guess you don't. I guess you roll the dice.
I guess you have to use accurate information in order to keep your status if you want to play the game.
Yeah,
And unfortunately, this world has changed. I think you
yeah.
have to play the game.
But
Um,
I don't think, to be honest with you, that Facebook should require should you that you should be given the option to not have your birthday be announced to everybody.
yeah.
You know, if that was the case, then I would be. But everyone's being hacked all these times now, so that's the issue I have with it. They ask
Yeah.
you where you're fucking born on this thing, and what is that? That's one of the key things that were, from a identity theft thing. Where were you born?
Yeah.
You know,
That's right.
so yeah. So
That is true.
so I'm getting. Hey, I had a great evening. I read some. I read a book, and
Todd's going old school. That's good.
anyway, it's enough on Facebook. But yeah, that's why we're not on Facebook tonight. And if you know anybody at Facebook, I'd definitely appreciate help a brother out.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Oh. Well, we
Well,
had a few.
there's
Go ahead.
lots of stuff going on in the podcasting
Yeah.
space. It looks like, and you guys talk about the IAB document, and I've read through that document, and it's kind of what I expected, but I guess I was expecting a little more.
Yeah.
But that's okay. It's a good start.
Yeah. Daniel said he wished there was a little more meat too.
Yeah.
And
But I also
yeah,
understand, because I was on the committee for a while, what the factors were that went into getting that thing out the door, even though it took almost 2 years to even get that out the door.
Yeah,
That
20 months.
that kind of tells you a little bit. Just the time frame tells you a little bit about the struggle that went on behind the scenes to even get that far.
Well, you're no longer an IAB member right now, so
That's right.
any
That's right.
thoughts on maybe you can talk a little about behind baseball. I can't.
Well, I don't really. I mean, it's been many months since I was on that committee. I know Irina talked to me and continues to talk to me off and on. She was really wanting me to be on that committee, and I was, of course, they're always trying to recruit new companies to be in there, and Spreaker decided not to be involved because, frankly, Spreaker is not currently a big advertising platform. We just don't do a lot of advertising, so it's not a big priority for the company to be involved in the advertising space right now. But that's not to say that that's not going to be the case in the future. And when we get more involved in the advertising side, that'll be justification that we get involved in that committee. But in the meantime, I think that the document is a good first step, and there was certainly a lot of conflict that went on in that process, just from my own experience at the early stages of being involved in that committee. There's two sides. We've talked about this many times. I mean, if you're a follower of this show, I think you have a pretty good glimpse of what the friction was, because we talk about that on this show all the time. There's two sides. There's the radio and online radio side, and then there's the pure play podcasting side. And you can read through that document, and you can kind of see that those perspectives there. It's the balance between streaming and downloading and understanding what those differences are. And I thought that the document did a pretty good job of drawing those clarification lines. But I could also tell that there was a little bit of a tone in there about how downloading was bad, right,
Mm-hmm.
and a problem that needed to be fixed. Even though that document really didn't address how that would be fixed, it just said that downloading was bad and there's all this missing data and all this kind of stuff. So I was a little disappointed on that, but I guess that's the reality. If you look at both sides of this issue, that's the perception and that's the way it is. That doesn't mean that it's entirely accurate. It just means that there's two sides to this issue, and that document definitely reflects that.
I had made the comment many times that the suits are coming, kind of like the Paul Revere thing, right?
Yeah.
And that podcasters needed to pay attention to this. And
Yeah.
I think that the document did do there were some things in some early drafts that, I had some. I actually sent over replacement sentences, to try to shift some of the
Bias?
I don't even want to say bias. That's indesynchronies. I can't even say it. Yes, biases out of the document, and it really wasn't biases. It was more, and you have a writer that's writing this that is paid for by the IAB, and
Yeah.
and they're trying to balance all this stuff that they're getting from all the companies.
Yeah.
And and it's again you're dealing with 23 companies and 23 different opinions and agendas. So you submit stuff as a replacement, and a lot of things I submitted were cut and paste. They took what I had sent and pasted it in. But again, if you read through the document, you can definitely tell that there are some commentary in there that you're like, I think we got to, considering the challenges that we had in getting through the document, I think I'm pretty happy with it, to be honest with you.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I think it's definitely a good step forward. Do you happen to know, or can you share anyway, any discussions about kind of what's next? Right.
I think everyone was just like,
glad that this is
got the first round done.
Right? Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, was the plan always, and this was the perception that I had. It was almost like it was too big of a project to think that there was a next stage to this, because I never heard anybody talking about like step 2 in this process.
I'm sure we're going to go back, because there was some stuff that was left on the drawing table that was, segments of stuff that was left out. Just because there not necessarily couldn't come to agreement, but we didn't figure out how we could, jimmy it in. Now, I'm going to be straight up, Rob.
What's a little bit of a cart before the horse, somewhat. Let's set the definitions, right?
Yeah, when you were involved, the whole committee was together, and then about the time you were no longer involved,
that's right,
because
it
split. They took the technical group did 90% of the heavy lifting on this thing, because what it did is it got the personalities out of the room and let the eggheads talk it through.
Down at the NAB, also. Right.
And that was about the time at the 2015 NAB where that happened. So so what will probably happen now, and then I'll have to ask Rena and the team, I'm sure at some point down the road they will probably look at, okay, what are next steps? I at this point I don't know. I think we're just kind of all glad we've got a document on the street. And as I told Daniel, our main point was that addendum, to be able to at least get the basis of the addendum in there and if nothing else happens in that document and companies pay attention to the addendum and implement just the very basic stuff that is in there, that'll go a long ways
Hmm.
to level the playing field. And not only that, the terminology, the buyer's guide, the audio buyer's guide is in review. I'm hearing they're doing fast turn on that. Matter of fact, comment for that is coming past, so I would expect to see the audio buyer's guide update coming soon too. So two new documents updated on the street, or one new document and one updated one is shortly. But um, I think what you have is, and let's be honest, had not PodTrack, Libsyn, and Blueberry joined, what do you think the document would look like, Rob?
Oh, it would be really pushing towards having everything be streaming. And then, downloading would be kind of like really much more aggressively pushed down as a priority. Yeah.
So, I'll kind of leave that at that. But it definitely, there was it was a fun process, and I
Hmm.
and I and I'm glad we were part of it and were able to contribute and and I think what it is too is that and you and I've talked about this many times, is that there are people in the space that absolutely hate if they could stop, subscribe, and download, they would.
Yep.
They would eliminate it, and and I just go back and I'm like, it's not going to happen. This is what got this space off the ground. That's what makes this space special. That's what makes
Yep.
that's why podcasting is the way it is. It's just not audio programming on the internet.
Yeah. Well, I think that early on too, I had expressed a desire for this for this committee to work towards standards, right?
Right.
Real standards. And it was like, no, 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 we're not going to do that. We're not going to do that. And that's the question. I mean, if I was talking to Rena now, which I haven't talked to her since this document was put out, that would be my next question for her. Is it you did that with your digital audio? Why are you hesitant to do that over here with podcasting?
Well,
And
in the addendum does have some standards,
yeah,
some
I
rule
suppose,
sets.
but it's done in like this. It doesn't say that though. It just says, well, this is kind of like this is a
These are the
recommended
guidelines. Yeah.
concepts, right? It's not really kind of like stating that this is, you know, 24 hours is the unique
Yeah.
metric, or is it
Here's
2 hours? I mean, it still leaves the door open for interpretation.
here's the next thing too, is you're not media buyers are not going to read this document. This
or
doc
or half of it, or even kind of understand what the
Right.
implications of it are. Yeah.
So again, this is for podcast companies and for
Geeks.
podcasters, and I think if they and also give some guidance to media buyers just to ask questions, and
Yeah, yeah, I think it does kind of set the table around definitions and aspects of the technology that are important.
and if
To
everyone yeah, and
Yeah,
if everyone uses those definitions, if everyone goes to that terminology, and
yeah,
I hope that they do, it makes it easier to sell advertising too.
yeah,
Everyone's saying the same thing.
and it does kind of set the table for maybe what's next, a true standards document. I mean, I think it does kind of set the table for something that maybe is a little bit more strict, but I'm not sure. Is that IEB's role? I mean, is that your perception of it?
Well, they did some pretty strict rules on digital advertising
Yeah,
impressions and all
yeah.
that stuff. So,
Okay.
yeah,
Well,
but
then,
they're
I
not in the enforcement or saying they're not
yeah,
in the certification process, but they do lay out standards.
yeah,
So, I think we'll see where we get. Hopefully, we'll have a round two here. But I think the thing to realize is that the majority of podcast companies today are producing pretty good statistics. And I haven't seen only with a couple of companies to do apples to oranges comparisons, but um, again, if they follow the basics, just the
yeah.
basics of the addendum, that'll help a lot. And
Uh-huh.
you still have to watch out for fraud and filtering and all that stuff that
Sure.
we talk
And
about.
that's mentioned in there, so that's
It's
good.
mentioned, yeah,
Yeah.
but no, definitely no rule sets per se
Yeah.
on filtering. But
So I mean, if you look at the big picture of it, maybe this helps the companies start thinking a certain direction about how they need to be thinking about their filtering of their raw data logs, and then that sets the table for probably easier acceptance of a more rigid standard at some point,
yeah,
because they're kind of already moving down that path, right?
and I
Uh,
think those three pieces. I think I use 11. I think Angela told me that we have 11 rule sets, or 11. Basically the three that are on there are our first three, and then we have eight more
kind
set of things, of layers.
filtering processes,
Yeah,
right?
of
Yeah,
different layers.
yeah,
So if number one, if a company's not filtering,
yeah,
the numbers are going to be like
yeah.
it's many multiples higher,
Yes, yes,
many multiples higher.
yeah.
But so
And let's be honest, that's been happening in the space. So um, maybe hopefully less.
well, not necessarily. I don't think that there was a filtering issue. I think there was an actual counting issue with, and if the company that you're referring to or hinting at follows steps 1, 2, and 3, we will eliminate that. We'll
Yeah,
eliminate those issues.
yeah, that's right. Yeah,
And like I said, that those they follow those first three addendum items, and that'll go a long, long, long way to leveling the playing field across the board.
yeah.
And it also
Agreed.
gives some of the companies
Agreed.
maybe some guidance too. I hope that those that were not participating will take a look at this a little bit and say, yes, we're doing this. No, we're not.
Yeah,
Let's make a tweak.
yeah. I mean, I think that there's platforms, and to be honest, Spreaker is one of them. I submitted those guidelines over to our engineering team, and I'm pretty confident that they're doing a lot of that already. But
Yeah,
maybe there's a little bit of tweaks
yeah, little tweaks here
that
and
can be
there.
had there.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and it was just like a conversation I had with someone the other day. One of our commercial customers, they said, "How come, you've got this huge number from that was of partials that were 0 to 500K?" And I'm like, those are there for information only. Those are there for not for counting. And as a reminder, we don't count until we hit at least 500K on the download. And we went through the process of reminding them why we do that. And so it's we're having to re-educate our customers all the time too on the data that we provide them. So it's
Yeah.
to make sure that they're when they're going and putting their reports together, that they have a good report.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly.
But it is what it is. So we'll see what happens. So how was
Yeah.
how was podcast Mid Atlantic?
It was really good. It was a good group of people. It's a very unusual event. It's like a 1 day linear track. It's kind of like the Rain Summit kind of
Mm-hmm.
concept, right? So there's not multi tracks. It's just one presentation after another. Most of the presentations are like 10 minutes long.
Really?
So yeah, and
How
then
how can
there's
you do a presentation on something in 10 minutes?
well, you talk fast and you're content packed. So that's the key. You gotta pay attention because they're going fast.
I can't even introduce myself in 10 minutes.
I know. It's odd. We're kind of long-winded over here, aren't we? Um, and then they did have a couple of sessions, and I moderated one of them that were 40 minutes long, which is more typical of a conference session. So
Did they
talking,
did they
yeah,
break 100, or what was their head count? Do you know?
I don't know. I didn't actually hear a number. It was probably in the 70 range, I think, something
Okay.
like that. So it wasn't a huge event, but I did live stream it off a Spreaker. Um, I just set up my Nexus tablet right by one of the speakers and streamed it live. So that's all been taken down now, but but it was up for about a week or so. Pretty much the whole conference. So there was quite a bit of social outreach around that particular event, and I think Joe Pardo, which I know that you guys did an article and had him on your podcast, the Power Press podcast, I think, talking about it. Did a terrific job, and we wanted to be supportive of him, and I know you were a sponsor of the event as well, and I saw your materials there, and I'm just thinking that next year he could probably be 200 or 300 people. It's that fun of an event,
Right.
He does a really creative job. It's not a typical conference type of event, and I think that could be very attractive to people specifically up on the East Coast. There's a lot of podcast activity up there. I think there's an opportunity for that event to grow into something much more important in the podcasting industry.
There's we got a tweet because someone's having trouble in our chat room. So if we're going to be using YouTube more, we'll have to fix that. But Jason Bryant says, can't post in chat thoughts on this. LearfieldSports.com iTunes feeds are using feed burners. So I'm looking here, Learfield. I don't have any clue who these folks even are. Learfield Digital Media announces exclusive podcast partnership. Nation's largest and most passionate NCAA programs join in to launch podcast series featuring football, men's basketball, and college sports. So I guess the question Jason has is because they're using FeedBurner. Well, my opinions on FeedBurner are pretty strong and have been for many, many years. Don't do it. Get off that platform. It's long. It's very, very long in the tooth.
Yeah.
If they're using FeedBurner feeds, just good luck with that. It ends up being our number one tech support issue. FeedBurner just doesn't update. It could be 4 or 5 hours before your FeedBurner feed updates. Or actually makes a copy of your feed and then just replaces it on their site.
Yeah.
So I really, Jason, I don't really have anything more than, what? There's really no reason in today's age to use FeedBurner. So, but maybe they don't have maybe they're not on a good platform. Maybe they don't have a good publishing platform.
Yeah, and I'm not sure. It looks like Jason sent a link to the Learfield Sports article, I guess, about the Digimedia deal. I'm not sure what that has to do with his comment here, but
maybe this group is using FeedBurner feeds. Maybe that's my association here with what he said in his post. But
gotcha. Yeah, because the digital media folks are part of the IAB group too. So
hey, Jason, just go over to Chat and Go and make an account. You'll be able to chat in the chat room. I thought you could chat but being anonymous too. So, all right. So let me see here. What else have we got in the stack here? ESPN, of course. We didn't talk a lot about it last week, but the IAB, what do they call them? Where they had the whole day event.
The upfronts.
Upfronts seemed to have gotten a pretty good amount of press and drove the news cycle quite a bit. And there's some news. ESPN took a heavy. They participated heavily in that event, and they've gotten a lot of press post-event on some of its upcoming long-form storytelling that they may be doing in sports, and so they're a force to be reckoned with.
So didn't they make some claim that it's like 20% of all podcast traffic is through them?
Or 1 in 5 podcasters is that I would have no doubt in that. I would that would not surprise me in the least. Sports is huge, and ESPN's huge. So, without getting into confidential data, they move an incredible amount of traffic. So they're a force to be reckoned with in the in the space. And this coming week, watch out for some new shows being launched as well by some major conglomerates. So you should see some new shows popping later this week
Yeah.
as well.
I'm still still a little bit surprised that I was kind of playing around with Spotify this past week too a little bit, and they still don't have podcasts in their desktop client. It's only in mobile, I guess,
Really?
which makes sense. Most of the consumption of podcasts now is on mobile, but I guess it's not across their platform, which kind of makes for a little bit of a disjointed experience. So if a person wants to listen to podcasts on their Mac or their Windows machine or something like that, they can't.
Well, I'm not. I don't use Spotify too much.
Yeah, well,
So
I don't either, but I started poking around with it, trying to figure out what they're doing, and it kind of reminds me a lot of Zune,
oh
that whole kind of experience, and then trying to blend in podcasts in there, and it feels like it's kind of lost, in there.
well, there's not
Plus,
much in there too from a
well, plus
podcast
they
standpoint.
call it shows.
Oh, that's fine. Yeah,
Yeah, that's what they call it. They don't really call it podcasts per se.
interesting. Hey, Patreon has launched private RSS feeds. Did you hear about this?
I did. I was looking into this. It just doesn't surprise me that they would kind of move this direction.
So this is pretty cool, and they offer premium content behind a paywall with its monetization strategy.
Yeah.
And a lot of people have challenges putting that together. That we end up helping 4 or 5 people a week to put up their paywalls. And so anyway, they've this new offering will help them essentially get secure. Their backers will be able to get the premium podcast. So it's smart
Yeah.
on Patreon to do that.
Yeah, it is. I've been thinking for a long time they probably should have had this a long time ago, but it's great that they have it now.
It's kind of funny too because we have a priority list on stuff that we're going to add to PowerPress, and the building in a private RSS feed with everything tied in and monetization and all that has slowly been creeping its way because we've been getting more requests for it. And so I imagine what will happen now is that may go a little bit lower on the priority poll. I don't really need to duplicate something that a platform's already well designed to do. So it makes sense.
Yeah, it does kind of raise some other questions. I tried to deal with some of the issues around this back when I was working on Zune, because Zune and Apple have the ability. I don't know if Apple still has this ability. I don't know, maybe of actually logging into an RSS feed, or logging into getting access to episodes. I know that the Zune software had that ability too. So let's say you have an RSS feed, just to give you an example. I also did some experimentations with this with the Fox News people back in the early days of podcasting, where I got them to create an RSS feed. The RSS feed was open, right? So it's a premium content offering. The RSS feed is open. It's viewable in a platform like iTunes or Zune at the time.
Mm-hmm.
But then I told them to lock down the episodes. So because how the platform would work is that you could see it in iTunes, but then when you clicked an episode, it would pop up a window where you had to log in.
Right.
And use your login and password to get access to the episodes. So you could promote and market it in iTunes and in Zune and things like that. But to get access, you would have to go to the content creator's website to get an account.
Makes sense.
Yeah. And so what I'm curious about, and I don't know yet with this Patreon model, if they've thought about that. And it's been a long time since I've played around with iTunes to see if they've kept that same functionality.
Yeah, they have. They've kept it. But here's the thing, really the only weak part of the Patreon is it's a public feed. And they will share the feed but the
Oh,
feed's really
so it
not
is
locked.
public then. Okay.
Yeah, the feed is public, so it's up to
Yeah, but it
the.
says private RSS though.
Well, they
It
create
could
them.
be unique,
It's a
right? It's a
unique.
unique
Yeah.
feed for that user,
Oh no, I think
which
it's the way I read it so far. It is a one feed for the group. That's my understanding.
oh, it is. Okay.
So
So is the feed itself open?
says Patreon discourages users from sharing their private RSS feed links, but it's unclear if Patreon will be actively monitoring the use of these feeds for potential infringement. So maybe each person does get their own feed. We'll have to ask someone if they've
Yeah,
experimented with
and
this.
that's good to a certain degree, but what it creates is this situation where and I don't know what Apple's position is on this, but it creates this situation where people are cut and pasting RSS feeds around. I think it would be much better to have this work with just create an account
Right.
and have that feed available in iTunes as a premium feed. So
Yeah.
you just would title that in iTunes as a premium feed. I don't know if Apple is okay with this, but and then you just give out accounts.
Mm-hmm.
That would be a better way of doing it, I think.
Yeah,
But
kind of
that's just me.
in my opinion too. But again, there's a couple of perfect solutions, but they're harder to do.
Yeah, and it's going to be harder to do on other platforms like Overcast and those things. I don't know
I think most of
if
those
oh,
Downcast,
Marcos,
Overcast will support it.
supports that.
Yeah,
Do they?
they do.
Okay. Yeah, I
It's
hadn't heard that discussion. It really hasn't. This whole issue hasn't really been talked about that much in the industry that I've heard anyway in many years. But
I guess
I,
I guess it's not. I guess it's a public private feed, if that makes sense to you. That's what it appears they're giving. They're giving you a link, and it's not locked down. So if you share it, someone else will be able to get the private content. So it looks like each person gets a individual feed. Yeah, it's a public private feed.
I
Which,
think that's I
yeah,
think that's a little bit of a mistake,
yeah.
if you ask me. But
Well,
yeah,
again, they're not in the podcast business. They're in the Patreon business. So uh, I think it's, if most people that pay for stuff don't share it. You
that's
know,
true. That's true.
so if you've paid for something, you feel privileged to have paid for it, and you don't share it. So I'm sure there'll
That's
be a
true.
certain amount of it that's shared, but I don't think it. Again, they
And
don't
a
know if
certain
they're.
amount of these may be submitted to iTunes.
Ooh, that would be bad.
Well, but I could see it happening.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
People don't really realize it. If
Mm-hmm.
this is an open feed, right?
Right, right.
People could cut and paste it into
And that just
iTunes or
completely
Google Play.
defeats the purpose of having the. Yeah.
Yeah, and that was the whole reason why I was talking to the Fox News folks because they have a lot of premium stuff too. I just
Mm-hmm.
said, that's going to happen. So the only
Immediately,
way you can get
especially with
around
that.
that
Yeah.
is to keep the feed open but lock down the episodes.
Right.
It's the only way that's going to work. But all these clients have to be able to support that.
I think most of them do.
Yeah.
At least the major ones do that I'm aware of.
Yeah. So it'd be great to get. I don't know. I think a couple of years ago I almost got a guy on the show from Patreon. It would be good. The founder of it almost came on.
Right.
I think, or did he come on? I can't remember. It's been so long.
I don't
now.
think he did.
Okay.
Yeah. There's also news that Forbes has 4 podcasts joining Podcast One, and many of these shows I've never listened to. Hiding the Bathroom, The Premise, Mentoring Moments, The Limit Does Not Exist. I just wonder how these shows do volume wise. It's I get if you're a Forbes fan, I guess you're subscribed to these. I don't know. Have you listened to any of these? Well,
No,
you
I
probably
haven't.
used to.
No, well, they weren't part of Podcast One when I was there.
Yeah.
So this is all something new. And yeah, it's Norm doing his wheeling and dealing
Yep.
with the guys out there, and people have this perception that Podcast One is the place to be, and a lot of people pass through those doors, and some don't stay, and some stay. So it's just one of those things.
And if we have any Canadians listening to the show, and I'm got morning voice, I'm sorry. Canada's getting its first international podcast festival. It's called the Hot Docs Podcast Festival,
Oh,
November 18th and 20th in Toronto.
there's a
And
lot of podcast events starting to pop
yeah,
up around
a
the
lot of
country.
them. Yep. I know that
Yeah, I
we
was.
go ahead.
I was just gonna say, I I was listening to Rob Walsh's The Feed, and he was at the end of every episode he runs through all of the events that he's going to be attending, and and I think it's kind of like us too. I mean, over the last year or so, we all go to a lot of conferences now, and it's those lists of events is getting longer and longer and longer.
In
And
in, in fact, I was like, it's the sponsorship stuff's gotten a little out of control. So I was like, all right, we need a list. On January 1st, I need to go through and budget
yeah,
because, $500 here, $1,000 there, $250 here, $1,500 there. And
yeah,
next thing I've got to have $35,000 in podcast sponsorships rolled up for the year. And I'm like,
yeah,
which one of these do I need to cut?
yeah, exactly. I mean, on Tuesday of this week, I'm having the same call with our Spreaker's marketing director, and we're gonna hash out what events we're gonna participate in this next year. And it's the same process. It sounds like what you're going through.
Yeah, because, there's as much as I want to support, and I also look at, I have a dollar amount I assign if an event like the podcast DC event's coming up.
Yeah, I'm
And
not going to that. Yeah,
so I attended last year and I knew what their head count was. And I asked them again, how many of you got registered this year? And they told me, and I looked at their sponsor package and I said, listen, I appreciate you need to raise $5,000.
yeah, that's
That's, I
that's
can't,
too much.
I can't
Yeah,
pay X number of dollars per head. I said, this is typically, I look at the attendance and I have to do I divide that and, it's great to wave the flag. And I like to be able to support companies in support events when I can. But I'm
yeah,
also, let's be frank. I just can't spend money to spend money too. I got to get
yeah,
something out of that budget. I got to show some sales and some impact. So,
yeah.
uh,
It's a marketing budget.
yeah,
It's a or promotions or
yeah. So
customer acquisitions budget.
exactly. So we're going to
Yeah,
be looking at that pretty heavy, starting in the beginning of the year. I've already
yeah,
committed for the Florida event, and I'm not looking any further out than that at this point.
yeah. I'm actually. It's looking like I'm going to be involved in that event too. So I'll be seeing you down there, I guess,
Yeah,
down in Orlando at
I
the
I haven't
Podfest
I haven't asked
Orlando.
them to participate or anything yet. I don't know. If I probably should email them. I've just been buried doing other stuff. We've got a lot of stuff going on,
Hmm.
and not to mention I get on an airplane here in about 9 hours. I'll be on the East Coast all next week. There will be
Oh
no
wow.
show. Yeah, no show next Saturday.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
All right.
I will not be home. So I've got two East Coast trips. Kind of like I go to East Coast for a week, I come back for a week, and then I'm back in the East Coast for a week. It's weird, and I might be in Denver. So yeah, it's good to be busy, but it's typically
Yeah.
at the end of the year I don't like to have to travel as much. But that's
Yeah.
not the
Well,
way.
that's a long way for you to go. That's 6 hours.
It's not necessarily the flights. I'm cool with it. I'm used to it because I
Yeah.
leave here on a Saturday night. I get in Sunday. Then I'm ready to do business Monday. It's fine. But the
Yeah.
problem is if I have appointments on Friday, I have to fly home on Saturday. You can't get here unless you leave like at 6 a.m. from the East Coast. So that's the challenge.
Yeah. Well, your trips to the East Coast are like me flying to Europe. It's
It's
pretty
10
comparable.
hours. Yeah, 10 hours.
Yeah.
10 hours
Yep.
total.
Yep.
But I've done it so much that I'd be honest with you, it's a sleeping pill and good night.
Awesome. That's awesome. So, yeah, and we're starting to plan our next Spreaker retreat
You, you
in
guys do
Europe in December.
you
Yeah,
guys do those twice a year now, then, huh?
yeah. Every 6 months we
Wow.
get together in Europe, and it looks like it's all going to be done in South Italy. So is where we're going to go this time.
Well, we don't go any place as nice as that. We usually go to like Chicago in February during our winter retreat.
Snowed in.
Yeah,
You can get all your work done, so there's
yeah.
no fun and frolic
This year
involved
we're
in
going to
that.
do it in Orlando because of the
Oh, you are? Oh,
yeah,
awesome.
because we're going to do because Pod Fest Florida finishes, then there's like 2.5 days before Proclaim starts. So we're just gonna, I'll go to Podfest Florida, go to our retreat, and then a couple of team members will stay from the retreat and go to Proclaim. So we're splitting the difference on time.
Okay.
I just can't
Yeah.
afford to be out for 10 days straight in conferences. It just would be too much. So another team members are going to take Proclaim. I think Mackenzie and I are going to take Podfest. So, um,
Hey, Todd, I saw on your on the page of Pod to Pod, that
mm-hmm.
that podcasting news site, he linked to an article done by Matthew McLean, I guess, on the podcasthost.com site, talking about how much editing should I do in my podcast. It's the first article I've ever seen talking about this topic, about how to edit long pauses and interruptions, ums and ahs. He kind of outlines
What you
what.
should do, or if
Yeah,
you should
exactly.
even do it.
Yeah, and certain points in any conversation, overlapping, removing entire segments. Um, yeah, he kind of outlines kind of what what people do, or what you might consider doing, and how to do it. I think it's an interesting topic because I've spent a lot of time over the years editing audio, and there's a good way to do it and a bad way to do it.
Well,
Definitely.
luckily, I have been
You
able to
don't do it.
podcast for 12 years, and I don't do it.
Yeah,
I would
that's
not
right.
be podcasting for 12 years had I done it.
But a lot of people do because
Yeah, yeah.
they record segments. I mean, I do it with the Spreaker Live show because I'll record an interview at a different time and I'll put it into the show, and you have to kind of edit it and put it in there, and yeah, I like to clean up my audio as much as I can, though we don't do that here. But yeah, I've definitely learned not to over edit because it can sound very unnatural.
Here's the problem. Um, with my tech show, there's no time to edit. That content is getting old the moment it comes out of my mouth, and so it may already be 6 to 12 hours old to
Yeah.
begin with. So there's no time to edit. This show we could probably hire someone to edit, but let's be honest, it's just I
Well, it's not the premise of the show. This
no
show is,
no
pull pull down the microphone, launch Skype, and just start talking.
yeah,
That's our concept here that we've been doing for years.
and I just can't. If I had to edit, I wouldn't last. I'd be done in the first week. There's just too much other stuff happening. And I would
Yeah.
be divorced. My wife would come in here like, "What the hell are you doing?" I got you need to mow the yard. I got 3 more hours of editing to do. I mean, like, you should be like, "No, you don't."
Yeah.
Oh, okay. 3 hours. I'm going shopping. And when a wife tells you I'm going shopping,
You're going shopping.
oh no, 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 she's going shopping, and then
That's what I say. She's. Oh, okay.
you will suffer the ramifications of the credit card bill when it comes. Ever have your wife
Yeah.
do that to you? Go shopping, revenge shopping?
No, actually, my wife doesn't really do that
My wife
much.
only did it once, so
Yeah. Yeah, I was lucky. So, so I got to meet Matthew Passy
Oh,
at the Mid Atlantic Podcast Conference. He was there, and so he's the one that's running what I think is one of the better podcast news sites now.
so which site does he have?
He has the
Oh,
podtopod.com.
but Matthew works with he okay, he's not the originator. Well, he may be.
No,
He's a
no, yeah,
partner
it's
with
Joe.
Joe.
Yeah, Joe Berman is
Yeah,
the founder of it,
right,
but
right, right, right.
but Matthew's the one that manages the content.
Oh,
So
but they don't. They I've asked. They don't write any content. They just link to
link
content.
link to other people's content. Yeah,
Yeah.
but that's something that's needed. They have an area with podcast jobs. They've got
Mm-hmm.
it all here. They've got a list of all of the podcast events on their homepage.
Mm-hmm.
It's the most kind of up to date and consolidated website in the podcasting space. Besides your podcaster news site, I think is the other one
And
that's
that site
actually
was definitely designed, though, Rob, for actual writing articles about the articles. So that's
yeah.
the difference between podcaster news and pod to pod. And I
Mm,
actually had talked with the team a little bit a month or so ago about, we have to figure out how we can, basically cover some of the stuff that we don't write about. Uh,
yeah.
but yeah, they do a great job. This is where I go to look for latest news and information. They miss one every once in a while. I've sent
Sure.
them a couple, but you can't find everything.
Yeah. And not all of the companies probably even know about him.
Yeah,
So, that's just it's an example of how kind of disjointed this industry is. It's not a it's not a cohesive industry. It never has been.
yeah. We've tried to support Joe and his team over there for a while, but I think we've been a sponsor for 3, 4. We were sponsoring his newsletter to begin with, and
Yeah.
then they combined it up, and so we're in both. His newsletter is basically a compilation of all the latest news in the past week, as compared to Nick Quaw's biased East Coast bubble newsletter. Um,
So yeah, I have to subscribe to his newsletter because I'm not currently subscribed to it.
yeah, so
So
and again it's everything you see on the website. So it's definitely kind of it's just the highlights for the week, which is good. 'Cause I'm always and I go through that newsletter. I'm like, oh, what's this person had to say, and they do a good job of covering all the companies too. So if something has been put out by Libsyn or us, or even I think even you guys, Rob, they cover
mhm.
articles that have been covered by the podcast companies too.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah.
I just subscribed to his newsletter. So
So I encourage everyone to do that. It's listen to the show. Is get over there to podpod.com and subscribe. I haven't seen Michael in a long time. So is he actually still doing a podcast then?
Michael,
Wasn't that his pay? What is his name? That's the partner for Pod to
oh
Pod.
the pod to pod
Yeah,
fellow,
not not Joe.
Joe
You're
Berman. Is
not
that who you're
Joe.
talking
You're
about?
just talking about the other guy.
Yeah, yeah. I met Matthew
Oh, Matthew. Yeah, 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 yeah.
at the Mid Atlantic
But he's
Podcast
been
Conference.
involved. If I remember correctly, he had a podcast before, didn't he?
I'm sure. Oh well, I'm pretty sure he did. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. He's a podcast producer for Radia Inc. So I'm not sure what that
Okay.
is.
I thought he's been around in the space for quite a while. I might be wrong, but maybe I got him mixed up with someone else. Matthew, if
Yeah.
you're listening, just send us an email.
Yeah.
Tell us what your history is.
Radiate is the company that he's associated with, and it's like it's got events, and he does some conversations.
Oh, okay.
It doesn't specifically, well, it doesn't specifically use the word. Okay, here's podcast. Our season 2 of a podcast is available. It's Radiate with Betty Lou.
Hmm.
So it looks like he's getting involved in producing podcasts.
Gotcha. I thought he did a podcast years before, so I
Maybe
apologize
he
if I'm
probably
wrong.
did.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yep.
So anything else that happened at Mid Atlantic?
Um, they had a session there that was kind of funny. It was like a dating game session where they had a woman that was trying to pick between 3 podcast consultants, and so they played the dating game music,
Yeah.
and the woman that was trying to start a podcast was asking a bunch of questions of the podcast consultants to
Oh.
pick them as her consultant. And so they kind of went through. They did this whole parody with the whole dating game thing. So a lot of the questions were like dating related questions, but it was kind of for podcasting. So they kind of combine the concept of, the needs of a podcaster looking for a consultant and, trying to find a date,
Right.
so they kind of played off that. So
So
David Jackson was one of the consultants that was there that was considered.
so who ended up winning? Do you know?
Um, Tina Dietz, who's a podcaster. Um, she's not really a podcast consultant per se, but she,
But she won the podcast consulting game.
yeah, exactly. Yeah. Yeah.
I
Yeah. Cause
had
she answered the questions right. So,
I had a I posted something on Twitter yesterday or day before. I had a podcaster call me and was very upset. I mean, to the point of I could tell he was passionate about his podcast and um, challenges. His show had just stagnated. It just did kind of uh,
plateaued.
it did flatlined, and he was just beyond frustrated. And I and I'm I don't normally like to just kind of like tear down a person's show or anything like that. And I told him you know, and it came at a kind of a bad time during the day. I didn't have a lot of time to talk, but I've made a point to answer my phone. I try to not answer my phone. I always try to answer calls.
Yeah.
And so I spent about 20 minutes with him, and I said, well, let's just look at your website, and it was some crazy link, and I said, number one, we're going to start right here. I started talking about, the, being able to get to your site easily. And I talked about the new top level domains and everything that's available. No excuse these days not to have, domain to go into your website that is not 52 characters long. And
Hmm.
so, I got on his website and I kind of determined real quickly what was going on there. And he was on a platform that extremely limited, and I'm not even going to say the platform. They're relatively new, um, but it was extremely limited on what he could do with the site. It was just a continuous river of information. There was no sidebar, a little bit of header information. I mean, just really poor. And I was like, "Can we pick a different theme?" And he said, "This is it." And we talked quite a little bit, and of course, I immediately started doing Google searches, and I'm not finding this guy even in Google. And he has a relatively good topic. And later on, I had listened to after the call, I subscribed and listened to the show. He's got a great show, but I think a lot of podcasters are absolutely killing themselves out of the gate. They're so focused on doing the content that they really
Hmm.
if they spend 90% of their time doing content and 10% of the time worrying about their social and website presence.
Yeah.
And I told the guy, I said, this is the problem. I said, I can't find you in Google. I put your show name and I can't find it. And I said, number one, it's because of this stupid domain or I didn't really say it that way. If he's listening today, I'm sorry, but it was this stupid link you have to your show. Um, and after I went through this and talked to him, um, I just posted this thing. Don't come crying to me if you're on a locked-in vertical.
Yeah.
Podcasters have to make wise choices on, and some are better than others. And
Hmm.
some of the verticals are do a really good job. We give the podcasters a lot of flexibility, and um, but it's just this ongoing nag in the back of my brain thinking, okay, here you got this great show. This guy's doing a good job. But if he had just spent 25% of the time that he was spending on creating the show on his web presence,
Yeah. On his online presence. Yeah.
it would be a lot better. So,
Hmm.
I really encourage podcasters, if your show is flatline, you really need to take a look at your destination. And, you have to arrive at your destination as if you were a brand new listener coming to your page for the very first time, and in 10 seconds, maybe less, you got to decide whether or not this site and this person is worthy of my time.
Hmm.
And so you have to really keep that in mind and take this. You got to step back, put the pride down, humble yourself, and look at your website, because I really think this is part of the problem in this space is people are just not. They could get a lot further along with their shows if they paid attention to their IP, to their properties.
Hmm.
I don't. Do you see this, Rob, or what?
Oh yeah, I think one of the challenges that I think is presented to everybody is that as things go more mobile, it's putting a strain on people's perceptions of the importance of their website. I have those doubts sometimes too when I think about my websites and the importance of a website when so many people are spending most of their time in apps. Um, and I think that's maybe what's happening here is that there's a shift in emphasis because of people's perceptions of the importance and the traffic to a website. But I think there's also a direct correlation to traffic to the website and activity and keeping your website up to date too. You can neglect it and then you can beat it up because it's not performing. Um, it's that's kind of like a catch-22 situation. I don't know. What's your thought? I mean, you run a very active website yourself, and you're offering websites with your plans through Blueberry, and so I mean, is a website still really important to building a show?
Well, I know. I just look at the mobile traffic that comes to Geek News Central,
Yeah.
and look at that, and
So
look in.
mobile browsers going to your web page, right?
Yeah,
Is that what you're saying? Okay.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Tablets. We have to all think of how we're using the web right now. Are you staying in an app the entire time? Or are you using a mobile browser? Are you in?
Oh, oh yeah. I use them. Well, usually I use a mobile browsers to consume content. Yeah, but usually it's written content.
Right.
But occasionally it'll be a podcast.
And do you have content on your website that makes it worthwhile for a person to even come there in the first place? That's the
That's
question.
the key,
Yeah.
right? And and are you using a player on your website that will actually play content on a
Right.
mobile browser
Right.
too? Is the other question, right?
And I think
Um,
most people do, but
these days, yeah, you're
yeah.
right.
But it just goes back to this thing you're talking about, or we were talking about at the beginning of the show about me getting locked out of Facebook.
Yeah,
If my point of presence was solely dependent upon Facebook, I would be hanging myself from a rafter right now.
yeah,
But what is affected is my social outreach is limited right now because of my limited Facebook. But my web traffic is still hammering. I'm not I'm not going to lose listeners. I'm not going to um sure, the social interaction in my business is going to be impacted from a social standpoint here until I get my account back. But everyone takes breaks from Facebook for a couple of days, so hopefully I'll have my account back. If I don't, I'll have to start a new presence, and it'll be fun doing that. Yeah, haha. But it's not the end of the world because I still have my people know where. They're like, "Where's Todd's Facebook page? What the hell's going on?" Oh, let me
hmm
go over to the website. Let me go to Geek News Central and see what's happening. And right on they ran the page. I sent a newsletter to my audience. Say, hey, I lost my access to Facebook. I'm not on.
yeah,
So I'm not impacted. My show's not impacted, and my business isn't impacted. Um, because I have I have a point of presence, and I have my own intellectual property that no one can take away. Facebook can't take away geeknewscentral.com.
yeah. That's right.
Yeah, or newmediashow.com or podcastlegends.com.
Yeah. Hey Todd, did you see this extensive article in the
Yeah,
NeimanLab.org
yeah, yeah,
site from was it just a couple days ago?
yeah. What'd you think of that piece?
I I'm just skimming it right now.
It wasn't
And
bad.
no, it's not. It doesn't look like it's a bad article. It looks like it's pretty factually accurate. Yeah, I'm not sure that it really draws any significant conclusions though.
No info.
It's just full of quotes. Um, Yeah. I, I still don't know why Audible's in the article, but besides that,
Audible is not podcasting, folks. Just so you know,
yeah,
they have
yeah,
audio programming.
yeah, and that company has confused itself with the podcasting space for many years. So this is not something that is new to anybody that's been around this medium for a long time.
And
Um,
I think, is that the article? Art 19 gets another quote where they say absolutely shit. They don't say anything. They just say, you
yeah,
know,
it's really short of any kind of clarification on what they're doing, which is very typical of them. They're being very secretive,
well,
which,
because they're not really doing anything.
well, that and plus, that they're just getting press because they're giving the impression that they're innovative.
Yeah, I
Um,
told Angelo, I said, we need to announce an API. He said, what of? I said, it doesn't have to be anything. We don't have to publish a spec or nothing. We'll just say we have an API for metrics.
yeah, there you go. Like that's so innovative though, Todd. But
No, we'll just say
but
we have an
but
API for metrics and then not explain what we've got.
there you go. That's and then that's going to get the media all like in a
Yeah. Well,
catnip frenzy, right?
what are
It's
you
like,
doing that's
oh my
we
God,
yeah, we have
breaking news.
yeah, API to measure when someone's press play on a,
In a web player, there's an API connection there. I know when somebody pushed play. Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. There
So
you go.
that's just the comedy of the whole thing at this point. And
Yeah,
let's just call a spade a spade. They're not willing to come out and defend themselves. I'm just going to say what they're not doing.
yeah, exactly. But it does look like that you guys got mentioned in the article.
Yeah. Yeah.
Blueberry and Lipson. I'm not sure what the context of why they even mentioned you guys.
Yeah,
Really,
I
it just
guess it's
says
something to do with the IB doc or something.
so. Consider the work of Art 19, Panoply, Megaphone, PRX, Dovetail, AdsWiz, Acast, Raw Voice, Blueberry, and Lipson, alongside those of longtime radio tech player Triton.
And
Talking about
but what was the
it's
context
like
of what we're supposed to be referred to as?
it was very unclear.
Pay
It's like
attention, but why pay attention?
why are you guys even listing those companies? There was no context to
No
listing any of
context to
those
it.
companies.
I appreciate the mention, but there was, okay. What did we do?
Yeah, exactly. Why are you listing all the companies? So
Right,
consider the
right.
work of Art 19
Consider
and
the
da 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 da. But
work of. Okay,
yeah, okay, whatever.
the
But
work of.
I mean, yeah, I mean, they could have listed Spreaker in there too, and it would have
Yeah,
had no
yeah,
bearing on
yeah.
anything either, right?
Exactly.
So anyway, yeah, yeah, it's kind of a silly article that kind of
Sometimes I get so pissed off. I read stuff and I'm like, what I really want to do is just write an article about the article and just be, you know, write a parody piece to it.
yeah. Yeah, and Todd, it's funny that none of these journalists want to talk to us
Right,
because
right. They never.
they're going to hear what the reality is of all this bullshit.
Right,
I
right.
hate to say it, I probably shouldn't use that term on this show, but um, and it's not going to make their fluff piece look very good.
No.
So, yeah, yeah, I'm a little, and honestly, we've had a fair amount of the people that are listed in this article on this show before,
Right.
and I know most of them, um, and you know, they're all good people that are
Yeah,
trying to
yeah.
do
And,
important
and
things in the space.
don't take this wrong. We're not dogging well, except for one company we've been dogging.
Well, yeah,
um, it's they all do good things in their own right.
yeah, and they're just caught up in the opportunity that these journalists are presenting to them to pontificate, right?
Right, right.
And it's very agenda driven. It's not really always what the facts are.
Yeah.
So, yeah, one of these days, Todd.
Well, what we and also what happens is some of these companies are being very proactive on PR, so they're soliciting articles from companies. So,
Well, they're on the East Coast, and a lot
yeah,
of these articles come out of media companies on the East Coast, and
yeah,
they're all friends with each other.
yeah. And so, that is, and you have to take that into account, and I do. So
Yeah.
I think the main thing is, and to be honest with you, keep the press coming. Good,
Yeah.
it doesn't
It's
matter
all
if it's
good.
good news or bad news.
It's all good, and it's it. I mean, a lot of these articles confuse people as much as help,
Right.
because they get the wrong impression about things that isn't really, you know. I still hear stuff from people saying that, oh, it's so good to know that the podcast industry has come back so strong from its dark days, you know, years ago when it was failing, and it's like, yeah.
I don't hear that.
Oh, I hear that occasionally, uh, from folks, that have been kind of out of the pocket from the industry
Mm-hmm.
for I just heard it just the other day from talking to a person that was one of the key people that kind of built podcasting originally, but that was his perception of what was happening. And because I mean, a lot of people don't see the big picture, like you and Rob and myself, of long-term data, right? That actually says that this industry has been steadily growing every frickin' year since
Oh,
it started.
guess what I forgot to do?
Uh-oh.
Oh, some people have been waiting on this show for me to give this data.
What are you doing there, Todd?
Did you see the pool that I ran?
Mm-mm. No.
Okay. All right. I ran a pool amongst some podcasters that are in a chat room. And I asked them, okay, here's my comment. I had Angelo running a bunch of queries today, so here's an office pool that I'll provide the answer for on the New Media Show next Saturday. How many active podcasts are there that published at least I'm telling you folks, this is hot stuff, what I'm about ready to tell you. Almost forgot.
Steamy.
Yeah. How many active podcasts are there that have published at least one episode in the past 30 days?
So let's set the table here. Where's this data coming from? And
It's coming from Blueberry.
okay.
And it's how many podcasts, because we've got all the podcasts, 300 and, let me see what the actual number is right now.
Okay, so you guys have a complete data set.
Yeah, of every podcast in the universe. I keep hitting my damn nose on the mic. You see that?
Now tell the truth, Todd, and you'll do that less. No.
That's right. Bang, bang, bang. Pinocchio, right? All right, so programs here. So as of this very moment, there's 339,711 shows listed on Blueberry.com. Okay, so I had Angelo pull, and this was, I made his brain explode because I gave him a whole bunch of criteria. And really, the first criteria was one episode, publish one brand new episode in the month of, we're in September, in August.
Okay. Last month.
Okay, so did I just say it? But here were the guesses. So one person guessed 94K, another person guessed 140, another person guessed 175. Rob Walsh guessed 180 in the last 30 days. So drum roll, please.
Yeah, I think it's about half. Yeah.
91,000.
What?
91,000 shows produced a single episode in the month of August.
What would be interesting to know is what that trend line looks like over consecutive months.
Okay, that's coming. That'll be a blog post. Now, so what I did then, I'm like, okay, Angelo, let's take that to 60 days. Now, we're adding 1,000, 1,200 shows to Blueberry a week. That's, that's pretty, and it could be as high as 3,000, but maybe not quite that high. So if you take, the number of brand new shows that were, that were added, or were existed, but if you look at a 60-day period, just the raw number without subtracting a number of new shows and really, that was 131. So 131K has produced an episode within the last 60
60 days.
days.
60 days.
Right.
Okay.
Now, if you think about that, okay, so if we had 131,000 within the last 60 days, and you only had 91,000 within the last 30 days, and you subtract the number of new shows that were added, you know what I mean there, and
Yeah.
let's say you take off 6 or 7,000, that takes you down to 124 or so.
Hmm.
How many of those shows that were 60 days have actually already failed the next month? So I'm
Hmm.
I'm gonna have some good shit soon. I've got a list this long of queries that, and I'm basically showing about 18 inches of line data that I want queries on to be able to determine failure rates on podcasts. And um, because I've always said for years and years and years, shows make it to episode 7. Most shows don't make it. 50% of shows don't make it to episode 7, and blah 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 blah. I've always said that one saying. So I
Hmm.
want some exact brand new numbers, and that is forthcoming. But what do you think of that number, Rob?
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, I am a little surprised that it's as low as it is.
Well, you figured that we've got 339,000 shows that were in the system from the beginning of time, from the beginning of podcasting, because
Hmm.
we don't remove dead shows or pod faded shows. I don't pull shows out that are. So we're going to go back and look at year. We're going to look at this. We're going to look
Well,
at
if you're adding 2,000 new shows a month,
or 1,000 or 1,500 a week
yeah,
sometimes. Yeah.
okay. Okay, I see what you're saying. And I know we're adding, Spreaker's adding a lot of new shows every week, and I know Lipson's adding new shows every week.
Yeah.
Um, that number should be growing pretty quickly, I
Well,
would think.
that number gets rolled up. That's everything. That's Libsyn. That's you guys. That's if they've submitted to iTunes, we have it gets added to Blueberry.
Yeah, sure. So that number should be growing pretty quickly, and new shows you would think would be publishing episodes, right? So that should add to the pool of active shows.
But it
Um,
also is indicative of what I've continued to say for many years is that there's an extremely high failure rate from the very
yeah,
beginning.
yeah, because if those numbers are being boosted based on a high rate of influx of new shows,
Yeah,
that means that to have that many shows or that few of shows that are active, that means that
the failure
um,
rate's really
those
high.
older shows are dropping out like flies.
Yeah. And what we're going to tell you is we're going to come up with some numbers like what's the average number of shows. Okay, so for a show that hasn't been producing in 90 days, how many episodes did they create? We're going to come up with those numbers too. We're going to run that data to be able to say, all right, a show that hasn't produced in 90 days, considering if they haven't produced a show in 90 days, they're pod faded. How many episodes did they create in their lifetime of their show? Over what period? And all those,
Yeah.
in all those weird things.
Yeah, it'd be great to really analyze all that, Todd,
Yeah.
because I think what you can start to come up with is kind of a trend line
Mm-hmm.
for the direction of the podcasting industry,
Yep.
just in a general sense.
Yep.
Is it trending towards big quality shows? And so it gets back to our concern about this kind of separation between professional podcasting and long tail podcasting.
Yeah.
Is long tail podcasting failing? And I think it's an interesting question that I don't think anybody really has an answer for. But just based on what you've said so far, I'm a little concerned that maybe long tail podcasting is not working out.
Well, we know that that's another number I want. How many shows that started 2 years ago are still with us?
Yeah,
How long
and
are
and is that number accelerating based on the noise of the media landscape that only these big shows like are covered in this article
well,
or
I
or
think my prediction is that, and based on what information Angela's been able to provide me so far, my prediction is that we'll see 10 or 15, maybe 20% of shows survive beyond 2 years. 2 and 10 will get to 2 years. That's my initial prediction.
Yeah, and is that content creation engine going to slow down at some point?
That's a good question. I don't know. So it's going to be fun doing this exercise. As a matter of fact, I made his brain hurt a little bit because I'm getting him all these different, scenarios. Yeah. So if you have a scenario you want us to run to add to this list, and I'm probably going to get shot for telling you guys that number that we've came up with initially, but I just, it gives you some food for thought here over the next week. But that just it just shows you.
But it's also, it's also not a good sign either, because it seems like, anyway, that if there's that few of shows, the audience growth is going to be stunted as well.
Well, or it's going to be more
bigger shows across a smaller number of of shows, right?
Yeah. But the majority of us can't even list off the top of our heads more than 100. So 91,000 is still a big number.
It is, yeah.
It's still a big number. That's still a lot of shows that are have produced. And again, this was just a quick look at one single episode. The next question is how many produce 2 episodes or 3 or 4, or what's the consistency rate? All that stuff is.
Yeah, I heard a comment. I'm trying to remember. I thought it was from the Apple folks telling me that about half of their catalog was active in the last month. I just recall
about half.
Yeah. So that's what I was told when I was with them.
Well, not according to.
I guess if you look at, they could be looking at a year data set too, to make that statement, because it's also possible. I was thinking about this. August may be a time frame when a lot of podcasters take some time off.
Sure.
Right?
Sure.
So you may see a drop off there that maybe wouldn't be the case in September, October, November.
Yeah. Like I said, September was, if you look at the pure numbers, was 131. So, so you take the 90K, and then there was an additional 40K that were active within 60 days. So, once we look at the data more deep, we'll be able to tell where the trend line is. But I see a lot of people that start a show, and they do one episode, and then it takes them a while to get their next episode out.
Yeah.
So,
and then also, what's the percentage of the shows or the number of shows that are producing an episode every week?
Right. That's all important stuff. Rob, I hate to do this to you, but
I think we're done.
I got to be on the road in 9 minutes with a kid for soccer, and I don't think he's out of bed yet. So,
that's a problem.
Yeah, right. It'll be okay. He'll wake up and put on his soccer gear and eat on the way, then throw up on the field. So, well, anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed the show. And if any have any contacts in Facebook, I need help.
Help Todd.
I help getting you back online. You can email me, geeknews@gmail.com, or reach out on Twitter @geeknews. Rob, where can I get you at?
Oh, just on Twitter at Rob Greenlee with 2 E's, and then robgreenlee.com and Spreaker.com and SpreakerLiveShow.com if you want to catch my weekly show that I do for Spreaker, talking about tips for podcasting.
Everyone, thanks for being here. And there will be no show next Saturday because I'm going to be on the road. Well, Rob, if you want to do one by yourself, you can do that. But other than that, everyone, thanks for being here. We'll see you next time on the New Media Show.